office made a very disturbing discovery in the town of Penrose, Colorado.
An enormous crime scene at a southern Colorado funeral home. Nearly 200 decomposing bodies stacked on top of each other.
What did you do with my son? What did you do with my son?
Families lied to for years, allegedly given concrete instead of their loved ones' ashes.
They look like quickcrete, dried into little tiny rocks.
The husband and wife who own the funeral home are now facing hundreds of charges.
Disgrace, pure evil.
A real fine piece of
Tonight, our KRDO 13 Investigates team exposes the ignored warning signs.
You mean to tell me if someone went and inspected that place, they wouldn't have known something was wrong?
And examines how our state laws may have allowed this tragedy to happen.
And so Colorado basically is attracting the worst of the industry to come here.
What's next for families, the criminal case, and the funeral home industry? In Body of Lies, a KRDO 13 Investigates special report.
Good evening, I'm Heather Skold.
And I'm Bart Bedsole. Thank you for joining us for our KRDO 13 Investigates special report, Body of Lies. For the next 30 minutes, our investigative team will delve into the Return to Nature funeral home case that has captured attention nationwide.
Tonight, families are still waiting for justice, while others wait to learn if their loved ones are among the victims. In the midst of the heartbreak, we've uncovered the ignored red flags and the system that may have allowed this to go on.
But before we get to that, we start with the chilling secret that came to light last October.
It all began when people started to notice a strong, foul odor and liquid seeping from the funeral home. Penrose, Colorado. Population 3,185. A handful of shops line Broadway in town. A bid for traffic to exit the busy highway. One business, though, that sits on the outskirts of town within a stone's throw of Highway 115, indeed got customers. But to those on the outside, the non-assuming building had little to no activity. It appeared vacant. It caught the eye of some entrepreneurs hoping to expand their business. It was just the right size and location, or so they thought. They took a closer look in mid-September, and what met them was a distinct odor and suspicious fluids seeping from all sides of the building. A call to the Fremont County Sheriff's Office was met with no answers. This response from a deputy dispatched there.
This is Deputy Teal with the Fremont County Sheriff's Office. We went over there and looked at the funeral home. Everything looks okay. No, it's not the most pleasant thing in the world, but unfortunately, it's been like that for a while and there's nothing I can do. It is a legal operation, so...
It would be just days later, October 4th, the property was teeming with investigators, flashlights piercing the night sky.
Quite frankly, what they are telling us and what we have seen with our own eyes and just the nature of the operation here at this property leads us to believe this is a pretty serious situation. When
County, state, and federal agencies descended on the site, crime scene tape surrounding it. The next day, the governor issued a disaster declaration for the area. Neighbors who initially brushed off the smell stunned by the news.
Just thought it was a dead animal. We've been having deer coming over here. We thought maybe somebody hit one on the highway and it died over here.
It was a colossal crime scene for weeks. Agents spotted wearing hazmat suits just to retrieve the bodies left to rot inside. The nearby El Paso County coroner stepping in to help identify the bodies, nearly doubling past initial estimates. At least 180 bodies found piled inside. Dr. Leon Kelly.
We are exhausting every in existence scientific and investigative ability that we have to identify every single one of these people.
For so many who used Return to Nature to send their loved ones over to the other side, the discovery in Penrose meant that the weeks, months, or even years they had spent healing was potentially all for nothing. KRDO 13's Tyler Cunnington brings us the story of a renewed grieving process for nearly 200 families.
Samantha Naranjo's grandmother, Dorothy Tardif,
Very strong woman.
was the matriarch of their family tree.
She has 27 grandchildren.
Dorothy died just before her 83rd birthday in October of 2022.
Everyone felt her love, felt her genuine spirit.
Just hours after her passing, John and Carrie Halford, the owners of Return to Nature Funeral Home, arrived at Tardif's home. She says John took it upon himself to go to Dorothy's room and carry her to the front door.
He jolted into the living room with her body moving in his arms. He was able to catch his footing as he was laughing, saying, "It's okay, we're gonna take great care of your loved one."
A day that left such a shaky first impression eventually pieced itself together.
The nightmares haven't stopped.
And only seemed to get worse, as Naranjo and so many others would come to realize they were likely given ground-up concrete instead of ashes.
My mom made necklaces for the women and bracelets for the men in our family to have urns. And I put my son's bracelet on him, and he asked, "Is it really her this time?" And I just broke down crying.
And from then, like the opening of Pandora's box, families were flooded by darkness.
It keeps me up at night. My grandma was one of the most important people in my life.
And some just left to wonder, with their family members yet to be identified.
My mother asked me last night, about my daughter. But where is she? I said, I don't know. I had to tell her I don't know.
And swelling with anger at the mere thought of John and Carrie.
Absolute psychopaths.
Animals.
A real fine piece of shit.
And while an urn is meant to represent the decades of one's love, memories, and spirit, it now just serves as a constant reminder of the unthinkable. Tyler Cunnington, KRDO 13.
So who are these funeral home owners?
And what may have led them to allegedly lie to so many families?
John, do you have anything to say to the families?
Coming up in our special report, Body of Lies, KRDO 13 investigates, digs into the owner's history and the ignored warning that could have spared so many families this unthinkable grief.
Return to Nature owners John and Carrie Halford each face 260 charges connected to improperly storing bodies.
Court records show the couple is in financial demise, which may have led to all of this. KRDO 13 investigator Sean Rice explains what he's uncovered about the couple at the center of this alleged criminal enterprise.
This is my son. What did you do with my son? What did you do with my son? This is my son. What did you do with him? Where is he? Where is my baby?
Funeral homeowner John Halford is out of jail. His wife Carrie is still under arrest inside the El Paso County Jail. John refused to acknowledge or answer families or our questions when he was in court earlier this month.
John, you previously told your wife that you didn't give an F about this community and you wanted to stay out of effing prison. Is that still how you feel?
Still missing.
The husband and wife each facing 260 charges, including 190 counts of abuse of a corpse, money laundering, and theft. They moved to Colorado Springs from Wagoner, Oklahoma. According to a Return to Nature's Instagram post in 2018, John brands himself a third-generational funeral home director. With 19-plus years of experience, John and Carrie opened Return to Nature with only one location in Colorado Springs, branded as a green burial funeral home.
Being chemically embalmed, you are transforming your body into a toxic substance for all of eternity.
Instagram shows the Halfords expanded, opening the Penrose location back in 2019. That's where authorities say from 2019 to 2023, John and Carrie stacked up bodies that were supposed to be cremated. Court testimony earlier this year reveals John texted Carrie in 2020 concerned about the situation in Penrose. It appeared John wanted to stop, telling Carrie he got, quote, people juice in his mouth.
I'm ready to give up. It getting in my mouth turned a new page for me about all of this and everything.
KRDO 13 Investigates found the Halfords were struggling financially before they were arrested. Wilbert Home Crematory had filed a lawsuit against them for more than $20,000 in unpaid bills. And their Colorado Springs funeral home landlord filed a lawsuit claiming they were owed $97,000 in rent. The Halfords forcibly evicted from this house in Colorado Springs for failing to pay rent. After that, they rented this home, only paying rent on 1 month. Before authorities say the couple went on the run to Wagoner, Oklahoma, the landlord says the Halfords told her they were leaving to take care of an ailing family member. She, too, took them to court, and a judge allowed her to take back the home. After evicting them, the landlord says she found expensive Louis Vuitton bags and Gucci watches in the home. But for now, the families are left with silence, waiting for answers and justice.
Where's the rest of my son's body? The 100 pounds he lost during decomposition while he laid in your funeral home. Where is it, John?
Sean Rice, KRDO 13 Investigates.
Investigators say the owner's lies to families went on for years, promising to cremate them, but allegedly giving them ground-up concrete instead. How did this alleged criminal enterprise stay a secret for so long? Chief Investigator Chelsea Brensel explains how the state may have allowed the owners to slip through the cracks.
3 years before the grisly discovery at Return to Nature Funeral Home, there were concerns about what was happening inside these walls.
After making entry into the facility, we found over 100 decedents who were improperly stored and has created a hazardous scene.
Arrest records reveal Fremont County Coroner Randy Keller alerted state regulators about body storage and refrigeration concerns back in May 2020. The Department of Regulatory Agencies admits it received an email from Keller. But the state refuses to release the email due to the ongoing investigation and tells KRDO 13 Investigates they don't even know if they responded to Keller. They also appear to blame state law for the oversight because the agency didn't have inspection authority back in 2020. In a statement, Dora says in part, quote, he did not provide the origin of the phone calls or name of the funeral home in question and indicated he was unaware if the concerns were justified. Mr. Keller did not provide results of an inspection or any follow-up related to the phone calls he received.
If they didn't think that that was a credible complaint coming from a coroner, I think Governor Polis should look at that. I think, there should be an investigation.
It ultimately took the Fremont County Sheriff's and Coroner's Office getting complaints from residents last fall for regulators to actually go inside. In October, when inspectors finally got in touch with funeral home owner John Halford, Halford admitted over the phone he had a problem, but insisted he was running a taxidermy business. After he failed to show for an inspection, regulators issued a cease and desist order for the funeral home that's license expired 11 months earlier. Lawmakers acknowledge that is a problem.
Our State Department doesn't dedicate a lot of time and employee power to visiting these funeral homes across the state because they just don't have the budget to do it.
The National Funeral Home Director Association says the fact that regulators can only inspect funeral homes when a complaint is filed is one of the biggest issues our state faces. And KRDO 13 Investigates found there isn't even one state employee dedicated to solely overseeing funeral homes.
All these things, they need to just tighten up regulations and they need to inspect them. You mean to tell me if someone went and inspected that place, they wouldn't have known something was wrong?
Chelsea Brensel, KRDO 13 Investigates.
Next on Body of Lies.
It's not enough to protect people. It won't protect you or me.
Why our state may be attracting deception in the funeral home industry and what's being done to stop it. That's next in our KRDO 13 Investigates special report, Body of Lies.
Colorado is home to multiple funeral home tragedies, and there is finally a push at the state capitol to strengthen our laws after the industry deregulated in the 80s.
KRDO 13 investigator Quinn Ritzdorf explains how impacted families are calling for change.
The first 18 months, the nightmares never stopped. And even talking about it now, the visions are still there.
6 years after Danielle's husband, David McCarthy, died from a massive heart attack, she was finally able to bury him. David was a victim of Sunset Mesa Funeral Home in Montrose, Colorado. The FBI found that the owners mutilated and sold 800 bodies across the world from 2010 to 2018, and families had no idea. The owners are now in prison, but the funeral home industry hasn't changed, with no meaningful regulation.
It's bad enough that it happened to my family. Why is it still happening to other families? What is it going to take to stop this?
In February, police found a corpse and 30 cremated remains at a Denver funeral director's home, and some families say they are out thousands.
Where's our money? Yeah. Why do you do this to people?
Why did you do that to us?
Right now, Colorado is the only state in the country that doesn't require licensing for funeral home directors. Sheila Canfield Jones's daughter, Mirella, died in 2019. Return to Nature Funeral Home was supposed to cremate her.
The thought of her being in a building for 4 years, decaying, is like nightmarish.
Now Sheila is pushing for change.
We license people who do our hair. If you go to a restaurant, they get inspections. I mean, why don't we care enough about our loved ones that die as we do everything else?
Colorado basically is attracting the worst of the industry to come here.
Court records allege that owners John and Carrie Halford forged death certificates listing crematories that never received bodies. KRDO 13 Investigates found there is no law requiring the state to verify where someone is cremated or notify a crematory that they are listed on a death certificate.
Checks or balances should be done on our state level. We should have a way that someone can see that and cross-check that information.
And Colorado doesn't have mandatory inspections of funeral homes, where some states require them at least twice a year. Representative Soper and State Senator Dylan Roberts are drafting a bill to require licensing and inspections for funeral home directors, but the Colorado Funeral Directors Association is wary these changes will actually keep tragedies from happening.
Would a license have stopped that? You know what? A piece of paper is not going to change somebody's morals or ethics.
Both families of victims say they don't care and will continue to push for change in the industry.
How many more families need to be impacted in Colorado before we finally take this serious?
Quinn Ritzdorf, KRDO 13 Investigates.
With a demolition date looming for the funeral home, we look at what's next for the property, the community, and the criminal case when Body of Lies continues.
Welcome back. What's next for the owners of the Return to Nature Funeral Home, John and Carrie Halford? Their next court hearing is scheduled for March 21st. That's where they will enter a plea of guilty or not guilty on those 260 charges connected to improperly storing bodies. The district attorney's office tells KRDO 13 Investigates they hope to bring the couple to trial by the end of this year. The people of Penrose and the families of the victims found in that building are already pondering what comes next for the property.
We know what many of them want to happen, but it's not yet clear if that can happen or how long that will take.
I'm going to laminate them so they last.
It took a while for Abby Swovland not to feel guilty for allowing the Return to Nature Funeral Home to handle the remains of her mother, Sally. Today, most of that guilt is gone, but when she visits the property or meets victims like herself, other emotions are still fresh.
Devastation knowing that my mom was in there. It reignites my anger.
Part of the reason she chose Return to Nature is the promise that Carrie Halford made to her and others to plant a tree in their loved one's memory. Shortly after the grim discovery in October, Abby started an online fundraiser to do what Carrie promised but never fulfilled as part of a memorial at the site.
I felt like our loved ones and everyone that used Return to Nature was owed not only their trees, but owed remembrance and owed respect that they were not given.
At the end of this month, the EPA will bring in machines to demolish the structure. But even after the building is gone, the property may be just as toxic on paper.
There's a long line of issues that are,
with this property.
Dale Gagas is a longtime realtor in Penrose and walked us through some of the scenarios that could come next. Fremont County property records show the Halfords bought it in 2021 from Wade and Karen Brown, a couple in California who still holds the deed. If the Halfords can no longer make payments, the Browns could foreclose or simply release the Halfords from the contract and sell it again. However, Fremont County has already placed a lien on the property for about $14,000 in unpaid property taxes. It's also very possible the EPA, the state, or other agencies could file additional liens to recover some of the cost of the response and cleanup. And if those liens far exceed the minimal value of the vacant land, it's unlikely anyone would buy it, which would require paying off those liens.
My guess would be that it may end up belonging to the EPA or to the governing entities. Somewhere down the line, they may have what's called, a government liquidation auction. It's excess assets that the government has, no reserve. What it sells for, it sells for.
Despite the stigma from this tragedy, Dale believes eventually it could sell at a highly discounted price and be redeveloped. But that's not what Abby and the families want. They believe what happened has to be remembered.
This can't just go away. We've got an obligation to take what happened here and turn it into good, so this never ever happens to another family in Colorado. It just can't.
Our special report, Body of Lies, is coming to a close, but our coverage of the Return to Nature funeral home tragedy and the regulation of the death industry in Colorado will continue well beyond tonight.
In the meantime, for a detailed timeline of this case and extended interviews, go to KRDO.com right now. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.